They say time heals, but what if time runs out before the apology does? Zola thought he had tomorrow to make things right. Just one more day to swallow his pride and call his brother. But that tomorrow never came. By the time he reached the hospital, Jabu's body was already cold, and the only words left between them were unsent messages and unanswered prayers. This is the story of a man who learned too late that forgiveness doesn't wait for timing, it waits for courage. A story where regret came faster than forgiveness, but slower than fate. He died before his apology arrived, and that's where the lesson begins.
Tales of Africa by Mrprince.
The rain fell hard on the zinc roof that night, like it had a message to deliver. Zola sat alone in his one-room apartment in Cape Town, staring at his phone, waiting for a message that never came. He had been angry with his younger brother, Jabu, for 2 years, and pride had built a wall taller than forgiveness between them. The fight had started over something small, money from a family land sale. But over time, it became poison in their veins. Jabu had tried to reach out months ago, but Zola ignored him. He should learn respect, he told himself. Yet, deep down, guilt often whispered to him at night, especially when he heard his mother pray for peace between them. That evening he typed a message, an apology actually, but his ego wouldn't let him press send. Instead, he deleted it and poured another drink. Then came the call. His phone buzzed twice before he picked up, irritation on his face. "Hello?" he said coldly. It was a neighbor's voice, panicked, trembling, and wet with tears. "Zola. Jabu had an accident at Long Street. It's bad. They're taking him to teaching hospital now." The world went quiet. His breath caught. The bottle dropped from his hand and shattered. He grabbed his keys, barefoot, heart racing faster than the rain. The roads were flooded, headlights blinding, horns blaring, but he didn't care. He kept whispering, "He can't die. Not like this." As he drove through the storm, memories of their childhood flashed, 2 boys running through red mud, laughing without knowing life could turn this cruel. When he reached the hospital, the nurse at the desk looked at him with the kind of pity that doesn't need words. Zola's knees buckled. "Where is he?" he whispered. The nurse only pointed toward the morgue section, and in that instant, his world stopped breathing. They didn't let him see the body that night. "Come back tomorrow morning," they said. But Zola didn't leave. He sat under the hospital corridor, soaked to the bone, replaying everything, every insult, every ignored call, every chance he wasted. The rain had stopped, but inside him, the storm had just begun. He wanted to scream, but guilt strangled his voice. "If I had just replied his text last week," he muttered. The last message Jabu sent read, "Bro, please can we talk?" He had seen it. He had smiled bitterly and swiped it away. Now, that simple text felt heavier than a coffin. Morning came slowly. His mother arrived from Woodville with swollen eyes and trembling hands. "Zola, my son," she said, collapsing into his arms. "Why? Why didn't you both make peace?" He wanted to tell her he tried, but he hadn't. Pride had kept him prisoner. At the morgue, the cold hit him like a curse. The attendant pulled back the sheet, and there lay Jabu, peaceful, young, and gone. A white bandage wrapped his head, his lips still parted like he wanted to say something. "Forgive me," Zola whispered, touching his brother's cold hand. "I was coming to say sorry. I was coming." But silence has no ears for regrets. As they wheeled the body away, a nurse walked in with something in her hand, a small, cracked phone. "We found this in his pocket," she said. When Zola unlocked it, one unsent voice note blinked at him. He pressed play. It was Jabu's voice, weak and tired, saying, "Bro, I forgive you. I know you were just hurt. Please, don't let anger kill us both." Zola dropped the phone and wept like a man whose heart had finally broken its own chains too late. The burial happened in their village, Woodville, 3 days later. People came from far and near. Jabu was only 25, bright and kind. Such a gentle soul, everyone said. But every condolence stabbed Zola deeper. He felt unworthy of his brother's forgiveness, the kind that arrived even before death did. During the funeral, his uncle asked him to say something. He stood before the crowd, microphone trembling in his hand. "My brother, Jabu, taught me something I'll never forget," he said, voice cracking. "He forgave me when I didn't deserve it. But I couldn't forgive myself fast enough." The crowd was silent. Even the wind seemed to listen. After the burial, his mother refused to speak for hours. Then at sunset, she came to his room. "Zola," she said softly, "Jabu loved you till his last breath. Don't let guilt destroy what love built." He nodded, but her words couldn't touch the ache inside. Every wall in that house reminded him of laughter turned to echoes. That night, he listened again to Jabu's voice note. The static at the end sounded like a sigh, a final goodbye. "Regret is heavier than death," he whispered to himself. He picked up his phone and opened the message he once deleted. The apology he never sent. He typed it again, word for word, and pressed send this time, to a number that would never reply. When the message showed delivered, he smiled faintly, tears falling silently. For the first time, he felt a small kind of peace, but not enough to heal. Weeks turned to months, but sleep refused to visit him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Jabu standing by the roadside, waving for help that never came. Guilt haunted him like a shadow that even daylight couldn't chase away. He stopped going to work, stopped eating properly, stopped laughing. A worry's noise couldn't drown his silence. Friends tried to cheer him up. "Life goes on, Zola," they said. But those words sounded cruel. How does life go on when you left someone behind in regret? One evening, he found himself walking down Long Street, the very spot where Jabu died. He knelt there, pressing his hand on the asphalt. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry for not loving you enough while I had the chance." A stranger passing by stopped and looked at him oddly. But Zola didn't care. He stayed there till rain started again, letting it wash over him like punishment. It wasn't just about losing his brother, it was about losing the part of himself that could forgive. He began to write letters to Jabu, every night, 1 page. Apologies, memories, laughter from their childhood. He placed them in a small wooden box beside his bed. One day he said, "I'll read these to you in heaven." The letters became his therapy, and his torment. But one night, after finishing the 30th letter, he heard something strange. The wind outside carried a faint whisper. "Let it go, bro." His pen dropped. He looked around, heart racing. Then he smiled through his tears. "I will, Jabu. I promise." A year later, Zola returned to the village. He had grown quieter, softer, and deeply reflective. He rebuilt his mother's leaking roof, started attending church again, and even joined the youth fellowship, the same one Jabu had led. Everyone noticed the change. Pain humbled him, an elder said. One Sunday, during testimony time, Zola stood up. His voice was calm but heavy. I'm standing here today because my brother taught me that love shouldn't wait for an apology before it forgives. I learned that regret is a debt only mercy can pay. The church fell silent, and then the pastor nodded. After service, a young man approached him. "Sir, I haven't spoken to my sister in 3 years. Hearing your story, I think I'll call her today." Zola smiled weakly. "Don't wait till it's too late," he said. That night, when he got home, he finally opened the last letter he had written to Jabu, the one he never read aloud. It simply said, "I love you. Thank you for forgiving me even before I knew how to forgive myself." He folded it and burned it under the moonlight, watching the smoke rise into the sky like a prayer. For the first time since Jabu's death, he slept peacefully. Years passed. Zola moved to Van Wickstrop, started a small carpentry workshop, and began teaching apprentices. He lived simply, but carried wisdom in his words. Whenever a fight broke out among his boys, he'd stop them and say, "Don't let pride delay your peace. You never know which day will be your last." His story became a quiet legend around Van Wickstrop. People would say, "That's Zola, the man who learned forgiveness too late." But he never corrected them. He just smiled sadly and said, "At least I learned it." One afternoon, as he closed his shop, he saw 2 brothers arguing over a borrowed tool. He walked over, handed them both a bottle of malt, and said, "Settle it now. Trust me, you don't want to bury an apology." The boys looked at him, confused but silent, and then shook hands. That evening, Zola sat outside his house, watching the sunset. "You see, Jabu," he whispered, "your death wasn't in vain." The wind blew softly, lifting a small paper from his table, one of his old letters, and carried it into the horizon. He smiled, knowing some messages reach heaven, even if sent late. When Zola grew old, people said he had peace in his eyes. But one night, sitting by his window with the rain falling gently, he closed his eyes and never opened them again. On his table lay a single letter addressed to Jabu. It read, "I've waited years to tell you this in person. Thank you for teaching me that forgiveness is not weakness, but wisdom. You left early, but you left light behind. I'm coming home now, my brother." At his burial, the pastor read that letter aloud. His mother, now gray-haired and frail, smiled through her tears. "They've finally made peace," she whispered. And as the rain began to fall, just like that first night, it felt like heaven's way of washing away every last regret between 2 brothers who finally found peace in forgiveness. Forgiveness should never wait for the perfect moment, because life rarely gives us one. Pride delays peace, and regret never comes empty. Zola's story teaches that love is louder than ego, and the courage to forgive is greater than the need to be right. Don't let apologies travel after death. Say them now, while hearts still beat. For in the end, forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for your own freedom. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, let it move through others. Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more real African tales.